Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Missy and I am really happy to have you here today. So today I'm going to be doing a little project and I thought that I would just bring you along and show you how to do it in case this is something that you want to do for yourself. So I just this past week I finally got all of my Christmas stuff boxed back up and stored away, and it really kind of leaves the house. It just seems a little bit plain after Christmas, after having all the pretty decorations and everything out. And so I was walking through Walmart a couple of days ago and I saw this fabric. This is the fabric that I saw, and let you see it. It's just got the really pretty floral pattern with the pink flowers. I just thought this was really pretty, and I really felt like this would brighten up the house a little bit and just make it a little bit more cheerful. I also love the pink in it because I feel like this kind of has that Valentine feel. I have a few other like vintage items that I like to put out in my kitchen and in other places in my house too, but in my kitchen for Valentine's Day, and I feel like this fabric will go right along with that perfectly. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a new skirt to go underneath my kitchen sink. I just got a new kitchen sink. If you missed that, I showed you in my last video the installation of this new old sink. So it's actually an antique sink, but it's new to me, and so I'm really loving that. And I just feel like a skirt made out of this pretty floral fabric will just kind of really finish it off and just make it bright and cheery for these cold winter dreary days that we're having right now. And actually right now we are having probably what's going to be our coldest days of the year. It's going to last for like a little bit over a week and be like just really cold and freezing, and we're not really used to that in the South a whole lot, so we're not really prepared like some of you who live in places where it's freezing like that all the time. So we have to take a lot of extra measures to make sure all of our pipes don't freeze and all of that kind of stuff, but we've done that. So it's just a perfect time for me to be in the house and to be sewing. And so I am right in here in our keeping area of our house where the fire is, and I have my sewing machine set up in here, and that's where I'm going to be working on this little project. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you all of the steps to making the sink skirt. If you have a sewing machine and you can sew a straight seam, you can do this. It's really simple. It's going to be really easy. So don't get afraid because it's a sewing project, because it is really an easy sewing project. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open up this fabric. Get the fabric open. And like I said, it's a 1 yard cut, so it's not a lot of fabric. But now we'll be able to see a lot more what it looks like. And I do think it's really pretty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and serge the two edges of it, the top edge and the bottom edge. I'm going to serge them because I want to wash this fabric before I start sewing on it. I want to wash it and dry it in the dryer because I know it's going to shrink. It's 100% cotton, and I want it to shrink before I make my sink skirt. If not, I might make it and wash it and dry it, and then it might be end up being too short. So I definitely want to shrink my fabric before I start sewing on it. So if you don't have a serger, but you do have a regular sewing machine, what you can do is set it to a zigzag stitch and then shorten your stitch a little bit so the zigzags will be closer together, and just zigzag all the way down both of these cut edges of this fabric, and that will do the same thing for you. The point of doing that is that then when you put it through the washing machine and the dryer, it won't get all ravelly. It will have a finished edge there, and then you'll be able to use that in your sewing when you actually make the sink skirt or whatever project it is you're working on. It's always a good idea to wash your fabric and dry it first, and to serge or zigzag the edges before you do that. So that's my first step. I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Okay, so like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is to serge both of the edges of my fabric. All right, and so you can see that edge that it puts on the fabric now, and so this will be really easy to wash and dry, and it won't ravel all out. But like I said, if you don't have a serger, you can do the same thing, just using a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. I did that for years before I had a serger. So either way, just finish the edges of your fabric, and then go ahead and put this in the washer and the dryer so that it can go ahead and do all the shrinking it's going to do before I actually start making my sink skirt. Okay, so I have my fabric washed, and now the next step is that I'm going to have to cut this selvage edge off, because you can see it's really big and it has writing and stuff on it, and so it's going to be in the way. So the other selvage edge is not like that. It's just the fabric print all the way to the end. And sometimes you have to cut this off anyway, because it'll kind of be puckery and it will mess up the edge of your fabric if you don't. But this one's fine. So I think I'm just going to leave this one. So I will just use this as the finished edge and turn it under to make my side hem. But like I said, this other side, I'm going to cut it off. Now, I'm going to do it with my serger, because the serger cuts, you know, while it sews. If you are not using a serger, then you just need to take your scissors and cut that selvage edge off, and then go back and finish it with a zigzag stitch like you did on the other top and bottom edges. But I'm going to use the serger to cut mine off and serge it at the same time. Okay, so now I have all 4 edges of my fabric finished and ready to start doing my hems and everything. And like I said, one of them is just, I'm leaving the selvage edge, and then the other 3 are all finished with the serger, or could be a zigzag stitch. So now I'm going to go ahead and start making the hems that I'll need. So I'm going to measure about 1/2 of an inch seam on each side of my piece of fabric, and that will be my side seams. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure them and then just pin them in place. I'm just going to use this ruler to measure 1/2 inch. And then when I take this to the sewing machine, I'll just sew right along that edge, and this will be one side hem. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And this side is actually that selvage side. So again, just about a 1/2 of an inch. All right, so it's time to sew these side seams in. Okay, so I've got those side seams finished now, and I'm ready to make the rod pocket that's gonna go at the top of the curtain. And this is the rod that's gonna hold the curtain up, so you can see it's not that big. But I have plenty of fabric, so I'm gonna make it bigger than it needs to be, and that way it'll be real easy to get on and off the rod. If you make them too small, it can be really difficult to get them on and off, and I just as soon make it easy for myself. And I have plenty of fabric lengthwise in order to be able to do that. So I'm not, I'm not short on fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my pocket about 1.5 inches wide at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my pocket about 1.5 inches wide, and that is plenty big for that rod to easily fit in there. And it won't be hard to get on and off. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did for the sides. I'm going to go ahead and measure this 1.5 inches and pin it. And then I'll go and I'll stitch right over the top of my serged part right there. And then that will be the rod pocket for the rod to go in. See, this really is easy. It's just straight lines to make all of these hems and pockets, and it's just not a hard thing to do at all. And then whenever this is stitched, this edge is finished because that's part of what I had hemmed earlier. So while I'm over here at my table, I've got my rod pocket pinned in, so I'm ready to sew that. I'm going to go ahead and pin my hem in too, and then I'll just have to go to the machine one time to sew. So let me see what the length of my fabric that I have here is now with the rod pocket in there. And it measures 35 inches. I need my finished length of my sink skirt to be 23.5 inches. So let me go ahead and find where that is going to be. And it's right here. Let me measure the other side. Now, you can tell that that is going to be a huge hem to put in this little curtain. So I could cut this off if I wanted to. I could cut this off and make it a lot shorter. But what I really think I'm going to do is turn it under and just make a double hem. Like this. Because that way, if I later want to take this thing apart, rip the hem out of it, I'll have this whole yard of fabric left and I can make something else out of it instead of cutting it off and making it shorter. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. This is really the, when you make professional draperies and things, you always do a double hem because it adds weight to the bottom and it helps it hang better. Now this is a little bit of a big hem for a curtain this size, but I think it's going to be fine. So this is what I'm going to do with it. I'll pin this up and then I'll check my length in a few spots and make sure that it's right. Okay, so let me check that length. tad bit long over here. Okay, so I'm going to take this to my ironing board and iron these two hems in, and then I'm going to go to my machine and sew them. And I might, since I have such a big hem here, I might use a hem stitch to sew this with, so that would be a little bit different. I'll show you that. Okay, so I'm lining my needle up right here on top of where I've serged. And I'm going to go ahead and sew in this top part that's going to make the rod pocket. I'm going to do a back stitch at each end. All right, I have a flashing light right here that's telling me I'm gonna have to wind a bobbin before it's gonna let me sew anymore. So let me go ahead and do that. Bobbin has a little bit of thread left on it, but it's not gonna sew very far. Okay, so with this machine, you can wind your bobbin right through the needle. You don't have to unwind it to wind your bobbin. And I'm doing this from the side, so I'm a little bit confused. All right. Okay, you could very easily do the same straight stitch like we've been doing to do this bottom hem, just right along this edge right here. It would be perfectly fine. I just thought I might try to show you something a little bit different with this, and that is a hem stitch. So not every sewing machine will do a hem stitch, but this one does. A lot of them do, and so this is what the hem stitch looks like. It's this number 16 right here, and so you can look on yours and see if you might have a stitch similar to this or a stitch like this, and if you do, I'm going to show you how to use that to actually put a hem in right now. So to do the hem stitch, you're going to turn your fabric different. So you're going to get, here's my part I have turned up for my hem. I'm going to turn that back, and I'm going to stitch on the hem part. I'm going to stitch up, and I'm going to have my fabric folded back. So the idea is that it's going to stitch along here and then jump over here and catch this other fabric every once in a while. And so let's see. I haven't done this stitch in a while, so let's see how this works. Sometimes I know it does take a little adjusting to figure out exactly where you need to have your fabric folded back at. And the only stitches that are going to show from the front are going to be the little ones that it takes this way. Okay, so it's stitching a straight line and then it's going over and jumping over there and catching the other fabric. So this is what that stitch looks like from the back side. And now let me turn it over and show you what it looks like from the front side. So from the front, you only see the little stitch that the machine took. You don't see the whole straight line. So here it is. I really like the way it turned out. I think the fabric is just really pretty, and I just like the way it adds a little brightness to the kitchen. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that now you feel like this sewing project is something that you could do, that you see that it's just not really that complicated. Something I'd like to know from you is, would you like to see more sewing projects from me in the future? And if you have anything specifically that you would like to learn how to do, sewing wise, or I guess anything else too, but especially sewing, let me know in the comments whether, number one, you want to have some more sewing videos, and whether there's anything specific that you would like to learn to do when it comes to sewing. So again, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate each and every one of you who watches my videos, and I hope to see you back again next week for a new video.